Hello and welcome to another SkaredCast tactical video. Today we look at the first of the heavy support choices, the Talos Pain Engine. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to another SkaredCast tactical video. Today we're looking at the role and use of the Talos Pain Engine within the new Dark Eldar codex. It is the first of the heavy support choices that we will look at, and this video is one of the tactical video series, so make sure you watch the others in the tactical video series playlist for the Dark Eldar. So we're running towards the end of the book reviews. This of course will be in two parts. The first part talks to the newer players, explaining what Talos Pain Engines are, and the second one will talk to more veteran players on the nuances of their use within a Dark Eldar cabal. A Talos. The engines of pain, of which the Talos is the most widespread, are seen as the pinnacle of the homunculi's art. Creations of mad genius, each is a twisted fusion of the organic and the mechanical, festooned with surgical apparatus and weapons of war. From the clanking chain gall favoured by the prophets of flesh, to the drill-legged shriveners that guard the ever-spiral, each is an unholy terror. These semi-sentient constructs exude unhurried menace. The drone of their anti-gravitic motors are counterpoint to the flicker-clack of silvered blades as they close with their prey. When a Talos catches an enemy warrior, it begins to rapidly and efficiently disassemble its victim, drawing each constituent part into itself to create noxious poisons and elixirs. So it's basically a killing machine. You know, homunculi make them go out and target something specific and basically rip it to shreds. And if you haven't read any of the Path of the Archon or the Path of the Renegade or the Path of the Incubi by Andy Chambers, I highly recommend you do. In the Path of the Incubi, Homunculus basically unleashes a Talos and a Kronos upon his victims. They're very fun. So, what are they? They're a monstrous creature, 120 points, which puts them a little bit more expensive than, say, a Wraith Lord. But what do they have in terms of statistics that makes them so appealing? Well, the Talos is Weapon Skill 5 and Ballistic Skill 3. Its strength and toughness is 7, so very strong and very tough for a monstrous creature, with 3 wounds. They do have initiative of 4, so they're not super fast, and they have a moderate 3 attacks, with a high leadership of 10 and a chitinous armor save of 3+. They are a monstrous creature, and a Talos is 1 model. Now the war gear is where they start getting interesting, and their special rules, and that they can be taken in units of 1 to 3 models. This makes the Talos a very attractive option when looking for something that can take a lot of punishment and deal a lot of punishment. They have the armoured carapace, so 3+ save. They have 2 close combat weapons, so their 3 attacks is really 4 attacks. And they have a twin-linked splinter cannon. So at that Ballistic Skill 3, statistically, twin-linking Ballistic Skill 3 is statistically a spot higher than non-twin-linking a Ballistic Skill 4. And I love twin-link because it helps them hit flying monstrous creatures better. You know, just re-rolling is always good in this game. Now, their special rules are fearless, so they're not going to run away. Feel no pain, so right there, they're quite resilient with a toughness 7, a 3+ save, and feel no pain. And night vision, so if they have to shoot at something far away, they're not giving the enemy benefit for night fight. You may include up to 2 additional Talos for the base cost, and then you get some really cool options. Well, any model may replace one of its close combat weapons with the following. So you can exchange one of the close combat weapons for chain flails, which is a specific close combat weapon that gives the Talos the shred special rule, I believe. So I'm just going to double check that. You can give them an Ica injector. Now the Ica injector is something else that helps them in close combat as well, and it's a melee weapon that has flesh bane and lethal dose, which means a lot like the flesh gauntlet, but it would be wounding on 2 pluses no matter what the toughness, and on a roll of a 6 to wound you'd instant kill your target. Great against things like Wraith Lords and, you know, high toughness targets. You can also give them a twin link liquefy gun. Now this is one of the only options that you take, and the Talos will lose an attack. It's rather expensive, but it is a twin link flamer. So depending on how you're running your Talos, you know, you can, you know, I've used the liquefy guns in the past, and twin linking, now that they're -1 strength, will be that much more beneficial, considering you pay the same points for liquefy gun on a Talos than you do on a regular rack or grotesque model. And it can also replace its twin link splinter cannon for additional ranged options. This includes either a stinger pod, a twin linked heat lance, or a twin linked haywire blaster. The twin linked haywire blaster being the more expensive of the options. So if you want, the stinger pod is a, you know, small blasts, strength 5 blasts. So they're great for, you know, against things like orcs and stuff like that. But to be honest, it's an assault 2 blast, strength 5 AP 5. Okay, so it's not bad. It's 24-inch range. Personally, I prefer the splinter cannon. I've never tried a splinter pod. If you have, let us know down in the comments below how it has worked for you. The heat lance is the 18-inch range, strength 6 AP1 melter lance weapon, so really good at close range. I wouldn't recommend that option because Talos are very slow, so they're not really going to get that close to really start popping tanks unless somebody's coming right at you, and they're monstrous creatures anyway, so it's more useful to run in and try rip stuff up in close combat instead of firing at tanks. If you do want to go anti-tank hunting, I highly recommend the haywire blaster. 24-inch range and will strip hull points very quickly on tanks. So especially if you have a unit of 3, or if you're taking the coven formation of 5 Talos in a unit, they could, you know, be dedicated anti-tank hunting or cracking open tanks as you move up, and then charging the contents inside about turn 3 or 4 to really bring the game home. So all in all, I really like the Talos. They're tough. They can be brought in multiple squads of multiple units, and I have used them, and I have used them to great effect in a variety, you know, about 2 battle reports now up on the YouTube channel. So they kill most anything they hit. I would only be careful of anything that has the instant death special rule, because they can be instant death, but giving them feel no pain and just that resilient, you know, 2 of them are the same cost as a Wraith Knight, 240 points, for 6 wounds at toughness 7, not toughness 8, but they are feel no pain, and they have the 2 splinter cannons, and they each have 4 base attacks. That's 4 base attacks. You charge, that's 5 attacks per Talos at weapon skill 5. Wow, they are good. I really like them. You know, combine that with something like a fighter ace that rolls hatred and gives them, you know, a hatred bubble within 12 inches, which is a new upgrade you can buy for your flyers from the Leviathan supplement. And all of a sudden you have some really reliable, just meat grinder style units. Tougher than grotesques, slower than grotesques, but unless your opponent is sporting a lot of grav weapons and whatnot, and you are smart with them and keep them in cover to really keep them alive, if your opponent has weapons like this, then they will hit like a ton of bricks, and I highly recommend you try them out. So the Talos is a beat stick. So now we're going to move on to the second part of the video. We'll talk about the nuances of using the Talos. As a veteran player, there's a few different ways that you can use a Talos. You can use, you know, little units of 1 Taloses as deterrents for the opponent to come and get you. Personally, I would recommend 2 Taloses with splinter cannons stock. I'm a big fan of keeping everything cheap and keeping them in the midfield. Make sure that when you deploy them, the table is here and you deploy in your deployment zone towards the center. Reason being, they're quite slow, moving at the speed of infantry. So you don't want them to be on a flank where they'll get out of position and outmaneuvered. You want them to take the brunt of enemy shooting and to take the brunt of enemy charges, but whether it be Thunderwolves, whether it be, you know, anything really. The only time I would hold them back in a reserve role is if you're facing an Alpha Strike drop podding army or Centurions that will murder them very, very quickly. So keep them in the backfield ready to mop up anything that gets close to your firebase. Other than that, make sure you know that your opponent will be afraid of the Talos after they've seen them used, because Talos will kill most, if not everything, they hit in close combat. And as a basic unit, combined, and this is the key, combining things within the Dark Eldar book, giving the enemy multiple threats that they have to deal with at once. The Talos form a pivotal part of this style of play. They are slow enough that they will come in a second or third wave as your grotesques go up, as your wrecks go up, as you have witches, venoms flying around. They're like a hammer blow. So you can always use them to draw the opponent in, you know, forcing your opponent to deal with them, and then counter-attacking on the units that dealt with the Talos. Or you can use them as a spearhead to take the brunt of the shooting, or you can use them as a mop-up to sacrifice a whole bunch of little stuff and then bring them in as the main attraction later in the real space raid. So let me know what you think. Have you used Taloses before? I will be touching more on the Taloses when I talk about the formations available to the Coven armies, so make sure you stay tuned for that in the other tactical videos that we will be doing. Thanks a lot for subscribing, liking, commenting down below, and helping the discussion in terms of all you Dark Eldar and non-Dark Eldar players out there. Let us know your experience playing with or playing against the Talos. We all appreciate it. This is Skari signing out, and we'll see you in the next tactical video.